Okay, as far as our good fortune and opportunities that we have another good opportunity with a fantastic guy who is running for sheriff this year. Let me please introduce Michael Berry. Would you all give him a round of applause?
For that introduction, and thank you for all the hard work that you put in to make this event possible. I want to just give a quick explanation of how I got here to Stevens County. About 17 years ago, I was a cop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I realized that I did not want to raise my family in a big city, and I sure didn't want to retire to an urban area. So I started looking around for something different, something better. I wanted to find a place that was rural, with abundant natural resources, where the people were conservative and Christian and pro-gun, and where the local government was as unobtrusive as possible. I did, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually an American Redoubt, and I never even heard of it, but it's still great that I found it. So you fast forward a few years, and I made it here to this area, and the things that were important to me then and that brought me here to Eastern Washington are the same things that are important to the 51st state movement today. So I completely understand the frustration with the liberal ideology that's getting forced on us by the left coast with things like the Hearst decision. And I was glad to hear just within the last couple of days sounds like it's been taken care of. The Growth Management Act, Initiative 594, and most recently the State Attorney General, who's talking again about trying to do a California-style so-called assault weapons ban and a ban on high-capacity magazines. These things are nothing less than a continued attack on our way of life. And what we need is a government that understands that the welfare of the people supersedes the demands of the state. So why am I running to be your sheriff? Fast forward a few years and I was able to retire here to Deer Lake. And for about 2 years, I was truly retired and I got to stay at home. And all of a sudden I noticed that my honey-do list kept getting bigger and bigger. And I swear I was working harder at home for my wife than I had ever had to work full-time back for the city. So I puttered around the house for a little bit longer, and then she finally told me, you know what, you need to go find something to do and get out of the house. So like any good husband, I did as I was told. And I volunteered to be a reserve deputy with the Stevens County Sheriff's Office. Soon after that, I was hired full-time, and that gave me an opportunity to really get to know an incredible group of deputies that are doing just a Herculean job of trying to keep the people of Stevens County safe, with about half the manpower on the road that they should have, and with little to no support, communication, or leadership from their administration. So I heard that from the deputies, and I saw it from my own eyes, and I thought, I need to talk to some community members and see if they see the same thing. So I talked to police chiefs, fire chiefs, school superintendents, business and community leaders, and they told me across the board there is little to no interagency cooperation or communication, and there is a desperate need for change at the top of the sheriff's office. So what are my qualifications to be your sheriff? I've already said I'm a deputy with the Stevens County Sheriff's Office. I retired after 20 years from the Albuquerque Police Department as a lieutenant. I'm currently Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force, with 28 years of service, most of that in law enforcement and emergency management. I have a master's degree in business. My wife and I own a small business. I am a life member of the National Rifle Association. And at the end of 2016, my fellow deputies elected me to be the president of their Stevens County Law Enforcement Association. At that time, for over 10 years, they've been discussing trying to expand the membership. And in our very first meeting after being elected, we did exactly that. We voted to expand to include cops from other agencies, police officers from other municipal agencies within the county, jailers, dispatchers, and civilian support staff. And we grew the membership by 50% in the first year. But our crowning achievement was just last month with our first annual Shop with a Cop program. I hope some of y'all heard about it. But we had first responders from 5 different agencies here in the county volunteer their time to shop with kids who were nominated by school districts from throughout the county to shop with us for grant money for free. We worked with business leaders and community leaders like the Colville Walmart and the Colville Food Bank. And that interagency cooperation, which has been so lacking for so long, is, I think, a big part of what made that event so successful, and why there's a ton of people that are excited to see what this year's second annual Shop with a Cop event is going to look like. And I'm excited as well. So those same people that I talked with They told me they want to help. They know how shorthanded we are, but there's no process, there's no avenue for them to provide that help. So what I intend to do is to put the community back into policing. And what that's going to look like is, first and foremost, I want to start a Sheriff's Advisory Committee, which is going to be key leaders from throughout the county that meet with me and my staff regularly with the intent of, who knows better about the problems in their neighborhood than the folks that live there? So the community and law enforcement working together and communicating to identify problems early on and then come up with a proactive solution to solve that problem. Instead of right now, we're so shorthanded and we're so lacking in leadership that we are a reactive police department that waits until the event occurs, shows up and makes personal contact afterwards and writes a report. That doesn't solve the problem, and we need to do something to be more proactive. Next is the Sheriff's Auxiliary. The same people that are drawn here to the American Redoubt, the people with skills like military, first responder, or communications, those are the same people whose help we need in the case of a natural disaster or a national emergency. And the time to identify those folks isn't after the event's already occurred. It's too late then. So we need to find those people with the right skills who want to help before something happens, train with them, exercise with them, and then God forbid when something does happen again, and it will happen again, we don't have to depend as much or at all on the state or federal response forces. We have an organic group of neighbors who are ready and trained to take care of their fellow neighbors. So I think that next is the Neighborhood Watch. Right now, we need to expand and improve the Neighborhood Watch throughout the county. And lastly is our reserve program. When I started as a reserve deputy, there were more than 10 reserve deputies volunteering to work for the organization. Today there's 1. And that kind of neglect and the atrophy that the reserve people, volunteers experienced is the same problems that the full-time deputies ran into. And that leads to what I believe the biggest problem here is with the sheriff's office in the county. Stevens County is 2,500 square miles. It's the size almost of the state of Delaware. It's almost exactly the same. And in that area, at any given time on average, we have 3 road deputies responding to calls for service from you, the citizens. That's outrageous. I can't imagine 3 people covering that much area. That number of total deputies on the department is the same number that we had in 1995. So 23 years of changes in law enforcement and expansion in our roles, and we don't have a single additional deputy here from back then. That same number of total deputies for the organization is the lowest number of sworn deputies per capita of any rural county in the state of Washington. 27 rural counties with a population of 50,000 or less, and we are dead last with the number of deputies we have to protect and serve the citizens of Stevens County. So what are the results of officers always coming to work and doing the job of 2 people being undermanned all the time? Well, in the last 4 years, we've had over 50% turnover in our full-time deputy staff. So we have to spend the time and money to bring in new folks and train them up, and that's very labor intensive. People don't leave bad organizations, people leave bad leaders. And I think that's being played out today with the vast turnover of our full-time staff and our over 90% turnover in our reserve program. Another huge problem is the jail. For decades, our jail has been obsolete. And to this day, our jailers go to work every day in overcrowded and unsafe conditions without the proper training and equipment. And nothing's been done in the last 7 years to improve their circumstance. Something has to change. My entire adult life, both in the military and law enforcement, I've taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. As your sheriff, I will continue to defend your constitutional rights and liberties against anyone and anything that threatens them. Your sheriff's office needs an advocate for public safety issues. It needs someone that'll fight for the people of Stevens County and for our employees. I will be that leader. I want to close with a quote by Ronald Reagan. I hope we once again have reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There is a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. I'm Mike Berry, and I'm running for Stevens County Sheriff, and I'm asking for your support, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.